In the deep silence of space, a giant structure floated like a forgotten secret. It had no engines, no lights, no signs of life, just a smooth black ring, large enough to fit an entire battleship through it. The aliens called it many names: the Dark Ring, the Void Door, the Endgate, but everyone feared it. Every species that had tried to enter had vanished. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone. No signals, no return, like they had been erased from the universe. And now, for the first time in 50 years, a human ship slowly approached it. Inside the small ship stood Commander Ilias Ward. He was calm, almost too calm, as if this mission didn't scare him. But it did. Deep inside, fear moved like a quiet wave. Still, his face showed nothing. He looked out at the gate, his eyes steady. Behind him, a small screen blinked. Voices from Earth and alien observers filled the room, but Elias had turned off the sound. He didn't want noise. He needed silence. He needed to feel it. Aliens from across the galaxy had gathered to watch. Giant screens showed the human ship. As it moved closer to the gate, some watched with curiosity, some with fear. Others whispered, "He won't make it." A few prayed in their own language, but none of them believed he would return, because no one ever had. Elias had read every file about the gate. The scans found nothing, no energy, no structure inside, not even time. One scientist had said, "It's like it doesn't exist, and yet it's there." Another had whispered, "It feels like it's waiting." That was what Elias felt now, that something was watching him. Not a camera, not a machine, something, old. He stood in front of the airlock, wearing only a light suit, no heavy armor, no weapons, nothing to scan or map the space, just a body and a mind. That was the mission, to step through it as he was. The human way. He looked down at a small photo in his hand. It showed a little girl with wide eyes and a gap in her teeth. His daughter. He smiled softly and tucked it into his suit. The countdown began. 5. He looked up at the ring. It didn't move. It never had. 4. His heart beat slower, not faster. A strange peace washed over him. 3. He took a deep breath. The air felt cold. The airlock door slid open. Beyond it, only stars and the black ring. 1. He stepped forward, slowly, carefully. His boots made a soft sound on the metal floor. He reached the edge and stopped. Then, without a word, Elias closed his eyes. He didn't pray. He didn't shout. He simply leaped. His body floated through the vacuum, silent and still. Then, the moment he touched the ring's inner surface, light surrounded him, not bright, not blinding, but soft, like moonlight underwater. And then he was gone. The human ship stayed in place, still waiting, watching. On screens across the galaxy, every alien sat in stunned silence. No one had expected it to happen so suddenly. No alarms, no resistance, just light, and then nothing. Some aliens asked their leaders, "Did he vanish?" Others whispered, "Did the gate accept him?" But no one had answers. Back on Earth, scientists stared at their screens. The data showed something strange. Just for a second, the gate had changed. Its surface had rippled, like water touched by wind. That had never happened before. And deep inside the gate, far from any eyes or sensors, Elias opened his own again. He stood somewhere that didn't make sense. The ground beneath his feet felt real but looked like glass. The sky was full of shapes and colors that didn't belong in space. Time didn't feel right. Every second felt stretched. Sounds came without source, soft hums, gentle echoes. He turned slowly, eyes wide, breathing calm but alert. There was no pain, no fear, just a feeling that this place was not empty, that something was here. Watching, waiting. And as he took his first step forward, something in the air moved like a thought, like a whisper, but nothing he could hear. He was not alone, but he was the first human to step into the unknown. Now, every alien in the galaxy waited, holding their breath, wondering, would he return? And if he did, what would come back with him? The silence was not empty. It was full of thoughts he couldn't hear, of time he couldn't measure, and light that didn't come from any sun. Elias Ward stood still, his boots resting on something that looked like glass but felt like air. He turned slowly, trying to understand what he had entered. There were no stars, no planets, no signs of life, yet he could feel something around him, alive, aware, and watching. His breathing was steady, though he didn't know if he needed to breathe at all. The suit had lost contact with Earth the moment he crossed the gate. No sound, no signal, but he didn't panic. Not yet. He simply looked ahead. Strange shapes floated in the sky, long lines that curved and disappeared like smoke in water. Sometimes they shifted color when he blinked. Blue became gold. Gold turned to soft violet. He took a step forward, and the ground pulsed under his foot, like it noticed him. Then the next step. The ground stayed firm, but the space around him stretched wider with every movement. He couldn't tell if he was walking in a straight line or around something invisible. Then, without warning, a voice appeared in his mind. Not loud, not even clear. It felt more like a memory someone else had whispered into him. It said only one word: observe. Elias froze. His eyes moved across the strange horizon. In front of him, a tall structure began to form. Not grow, not rise, just appear, like it had always been there, waiting for him to notice. It looked like a tower made of light and shadow. No walls, no door, but a shape he could feel. As he walked closer, the feeling in his chest grew heavier, not painful, just deep, like being underwater too long and remembering how it feels to breathe again. He reached the structure. A soft breeze passed over him, though there was no wind. The voice came again. Remember. Suddenly, the world around him changed. He wasn't in the strange land anymore. He stood on Earth, on the training grounds outside the Space Academy. The sky was clear. The sun was warm on his face. His daughter ran across the field toward him, laughing, holding a flower in her hand. Elias blinked. This wasn't real. He knew it, and yet, it felt real. The smell, the sound, her voice calling. Daddy. He stepped forward and almost answered her, but stopped. Something was wrong. The sun didn't move. The breeze had no scent, and her laughter exactly the same every time. He looked behind him. The moment he turned, the scene faded, like dust in light. He was back in the strange place again. The tower had vanished. Only the smooth ground and glowing sky remained. This time, he heard a different voice. Softer, sadder. They chose fear. You chose faith. He wasn't sure what it meant, but he knew this place was not testing his strength. It was testing his truth, his memories, his choices, his reasons. Why had he jumped into the unknown? Was it courage, curiosity, or something deeper? He sat down on the glowing surface and closed his eyes, listening. The silence grew warmer, like it welcomed his stillness. He wasn't here to fight. He wasn't here to win. He was here to learn. After a few minutes or maybe hours, he stood again. A path had appeared in front of him, a long line of floating steps, leading into the air, toward a place he couldn't see. Elias didn't ask questions. He didn't look back. He walked forward, one step at a time, and far away, beyond the gate, in the cold space where the watchers waited, something changed. The surface of the gate pulsed once. A new signal appeared, a soft heartbeat, weak. But there, the human was still alive. But no one knew what he was becoming. The steps in the air felt light but steady under Ilya's feet. Each one appeared only when he moved forward, glowing softly beneath him, disappearing behind him. There was no sound, no wind, no gravity pulling him down. Still, he felt grounded, as if this strange place followed its own rules, and those rules responded to him. The further he climbed, the more the space around him began to change. The sky, once smooth and glowing, now showed patterned shapes that swirled and shifted like thoughts made visible. Some looked like stars, others like symbols. He didn't recognize any of them, yet they felt oddly familiar. They pulsed with quiet rhythm, as if trying to speak in a language older than words. After what felt like hours or maybe just a few minutes, he reached a wide platform. It floated in the middle of the sky, with nothing around it but the strange, lightened shapes. In the center stood a tall, smooth pillar made of a silver-like stone. It had no carvings, no buttons, no screens. But the moment Elias stepped onto the platform, the pillar lit up. The voice returned clearer now, closer. To go further, you must be known. Before he could ask what that meant, the space around him flickered. In one instant, he stood on the platform. The next, he was inside a dark room from his past. It was the academy chamber, during the hardest day of his training. Cold walls, dim lights. He was younger here, breath heavy, body sore. In front of him, a failed mission replayed. His team had been lost, not because of danger, but because of doubt. His doubt. He had hesitated, and it had cost time. That time had cost everything. He stepped forward, remembering it clearly, but something was different now. He wasn't just watching a memory, he was feeling it again. The pain, the guilt, the question that haunted him for years. Could I have done more? The voice echoed again. Truth is not what you tell others, it's what you hide from yourself. The room vanished. Now he stood in his childhood home. His father's voice echoed down the hallway aloud, disappointed. Elias stood small, afraid, holding a broken toy ship. He remembered this day too. It was the first time he had felt like he wasn't enough. And just like before, the moment he tried to walk away from the scene, the room faded. Not into the platform, but into water. He was underwater, floating in silence. There was no pressure, no danger, just peace. A moment to breathe, without lungs. To feel, without body. Here the voice changed. It wasn't just speaking to him, it was within him. Many have entered, all were tested. None could see themselves fully. You did not run. You remembered. Elias opened his eyes. He was back on the platform. The pillar now glowed with soft white light, and the floating symbols in the sky slowly aligned into a circle. A new path appeared, this one not made of steps, but of light. It extended into the distance, gently curving upward, like a road into the stars. He didn't know where it led, but he felt lighter now. Not because he passed a test, but because he understood what it was for. This place wasn't made to destroy. It was made to reveal. Reveal who you truly were in his rank. Beyond training, deeper than memory. He took a step onto the path. Far beyond the realm, the Watchers still waited. Alien ships stayed near the gate, silent and unmoving. Earth scientists monitored the weak signal from inside. Some said he was gone. Some said he was trapped. But a few noticed something else. The gate, once cold and silent, now had a soft pulse like a heartbeat. And the pulse was growing stronger. The path of light curved slowly upward, stretching into a sky filled with shifting colors and quiet stars that moved without reason. Elias walked with steady steps. He had no map, no guide, and no sense of time, yet something inside him told him he was moving in the right direction. It wasn't logic, it was feeling. And in this place, feeling mattered more than anything. The deeper he went, the more the silence began to change. It wasn't empty anymore. It carried faint whispers, not in any language he knew, but in tones and rhythms that touched emotions. Some whispers felt like laughter, others like sadness. Some made him pause and look over his shoulder, even though no one was there. After some time, he reached a wide clearing. The path of light faded beneath his feet, replaced by smooth, dark stone. It was the first solid ground he had touched since leaving the platform. In the center of the clearing stood a tall, broken arch. Half of it had crumbled, and strange vines with glowing leaves wrapped around its base. Beneath it lay scattered pieces of metal, stone, and glass, remains of something old. Elias stepped closer and knelt beside one of the metal pieces. It had marking symbols unlike anything used by humans or known alien species. They pulsed faintly, like they still held some kind of memory. As his fingers brushed the surface, the symbols glowed brighter. Suddenly, the air around him shimmered. The ground beneath the arch became a window, a moving picture. He saw a group of beings, tall and thin, not human, not alien, but something older. They stood where he now stood, discussing, debating. Then one of them stepped through the arch. He vanished. The others waited, just as Elias's world was waiting for him. But the figure never returned. The image faded, and the ground returned to stone. Elias stood, looking around. The ruins weren't from one group. He could see other signs, broken tools, half-buried technology, footprints too large or too small for any one species. This wasn't just one story. Many had come here before him. Many had reached this place, but none had gone further. That's when he saw it, a smooth wall of silver at the edge of the clearing. It reflected the world around it, but not him. He walked toward it, curious. As he got closer, something shifted in the reflection. The stars above moved slowly, then faster, then began to swirl. Not randomly, they moved in circles, patterned shapes. That made no sense. Then he remembered the warning written on one of the alien ruins. If the stars begin to move, do not stay. His breath caught for a moment. The air felt different, heavier, not dangerous, but aware. The silence returned, thick and waiting. He looked up. The stars above him were no longer calm. They spun in perfect spirals now, moving faster with every second. The light bent around them, warping space like reflections. On water, the ground beneath his feet began to hum soft at first, then louder. Something was waking up, not a creature, not a machine. The place itself. Elias took a step back, but the ground shifted beneath him. The stones began to sink slightly, like they were responding to his fear. No, he paused. That wasn't right. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The hum quieted. The stars slowed. The ground stilled. This place didn't want fear. It reacted to it. It mirrored what he brought. He opened his eyes again. The stars were calm. And then, for the first time, a doorway appeared, not through machines, not through technology, but through trust. It stood on the other side of the clearing, a narrow frame of glowing light, tall and silent, pulsing like a soft heartbeat. Elias walked toward it, slow but sure. As he passed through, he felt warmth not on his skin, but in his thoughts. A voice, gentle and distant, whispered. You listened, you remembered, you moved forward. Behind him, the clearing faded into soft light. Ahead, a new world waited, one no being had ever seen, not because it was hidden, but because none had passed the test of knowing themselves until now. The moment Elias stepped through the glowing doorway, the world changed again, but not suddenly. It changed like waking from a long dream, where things slowly make sense, even though nothing is familiar. He stood on a bridge of light, stretching across an endless sky. The stars here were quiet, unmoving, watching. The air, if it could be called that, felt still and thoughtful, like it was holding its breath. Below the bridge was nothingness, not darkness, not space, just nothing, as if the universe had paused beneath his feet. Elias walked forward, but each step felt slower than the last, not because his legs were tired, but because time itself was soft here, stretching like warm glass. The bridge led to a structure in the distance, floating above the void. It looked simple from afar, but as he came closer, its walls shifted and shimmered, like he couldn't decide what shape to be. He reached the entrance, and the light around the door faded, welcoming him in. Inside, the space was open and quiet. The floor glowed faintly, and in the center stood two arches, side by side. One glowed with blue light, the other with golden light. Between them hovered a small orb, turning slowly, reflecting not his image, but memories, scenes from Earth, his daughter's smile, old friends, moments of fear and choice. Then the voice returned, soft and near. You have walked where others turned back. Now, you must decide. Elias said nothing. He waited. The voice continued, more like a thought than a sound. The blue path leads home. You may return, carry what you have learned, warn your world of what sleeps beyond. The golden path leads deeper, into the center, where truth is no longer shown, but lived. Elias walked around the orb slowly, looking at each arch. The blue one shimmered calmly, like still water. The golden one flickered softly, like candlelight. In wind, he felt the pull of both. One was safe, one was unknown. Then the orb changed. It no longer showed memories, it showed futures. In the blue arch, he saw Earth, familiar skies, his daughter running to him, arms open, joy, peace. But then, far in the background, something distant, huge, slow, and coming, a shadow at the edge of space. In the golden arch, he saw nothing, no image, no promise, just the feeling of deep silence. Not empty but waiting. Elias closed his eyes. He had come here for answers. Yes, but more than that, he came to become more than he was. Not for power, not for glory, but because something inside him had always whispered, we are more than we know. He opened his eyes and stepped away from the blue arch, toward the golden one. The voice whispered once more. Many have asked the questions, few have stepped into the answer. As he crossed into the golden light, the orb behind him faded, the arches vanished, the room dissolved. The path ahead was not made of light, but of feeling. The floor was no longer under his feet, yet he did not fall. He floated forward, pulled by purpose. Strange patterns began to appear in the space around him, not walls, not doors, memories that didn't belong to him. Echoes of others, lost voices, ancient choices. He heard languages he had never studied, but somehow understood. He felt the thoughts of beings who had long since vanished, not in pain, not in fear, but in questions. This place had listened to every traveler who came, and remembered all of them, but only one had made it this far. Now, the The space around him brightened gently. Shapes formed from the light spirals, maps, symbols that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Then came the last voice, not from outside, but from within. You have chosen not the easy return, but the long journey. You will not be the same. You will not be forgotten. What you become here will echo forever. And with that, the light wrapped around him soft, complete, and endless. Back in the galaxy, the void gate remained still, but Earth's sensors blinked again. The signal had changed. Elias Ward was still inside, but something else was awakening with him. Elias could no longer tell if he was walking, floating, or simply being carried forward. The world around him had no edges, no ceiling, no floor. It felt like moving through the space between thoughts, endless, and full of meaning even when no words were spoken. He wasn't tired, he wasn't hungry, but something inside him was changing. It wasn't physical, it was deeper. His mind felt wider, like more space had opened inside it. He could feel patterns in the light. He could sense shapes forming before they appeared. Even silence spoke to him now, not with sounds, but with knowing. He passed through a place where the light turned into water, falling upward. Each drop held a memory, not just his own, but others too. He touched one, gently. A memory flooded into him. A tall, bird-like being standing in front of a similar doorway, afraid but hopeful. That being had entered this realm long ago. Elias saw what it saw, felt what it felt, and then the memory faded like a soft breath. He touched another, a creature made of silver mist, full of wisdom and sadness, had once walked here. It had come searching for peace, but turned back when faced with its own reflection. Elias stepped away. The waterlight fell quietly behind him. He realized something important. This place didn't test with force or challenge. It didn't block paths with walls or traps. It simply showed the truth. About others, about yourself. And truth, he now understood, could either lift you or break you depending on how much of it you were ready to carry. Ahead of him, a soft shape began to glow. It wasn't a building. It wasn't a machine. It looked like a space made of warmth and memory. As he moved toward it, his own reflection appeared not in a mirror, but in the air itself. But it was not his face as he remembered it. His eyes had changed. They glowed faintly with the same color as the stars in this place. His hands looked lighter, less solid, not weak, not fading, just ... transforming, as if this place was slowly blending with who he was. Then he felt something new, a connection. He could hear thoughts, whispers, not just around him, but far away. He felt the quiet minds of the Watchers. Near the gate, he sensed the scientists on Earth, watching signals, hoping for news. He even felt his daughter's distant heartbeat, sleeping far away on a quiet planet, dreaming without knowing. He could almost hear her. This wasn't power, it wasn't magic, it was awareness, a new kind of knowing. He had stepped so far into the unknown that the universe had opened its quieter channels to him, not to control, not to change, but to understand. But to understand, in that moment, Elias realized he couldn't go back as the same man. Even if the gate opened again, if he returned home, he would no longer be who he once was. And maybe that was the point of all of this. He sat down on the soft glowing surface, and the space around him responded. It shifted, settled, slowed. For the first time in what felt like forever, the world became still, not empty, but ready. And then a new voice spoke. One he had not heard before. It was calm, clear, and carried the weight of something ancient. You have crossed the boundary of fear. You have accepted what you are. Now, we offer what you may become. In front of him, light formed into a small sphere, floating gently. Inside the sphere, he saw visions of stars being born, of species reaching toward the sky, of countless lives touching and changing one another, without even knowing. Then the sphere dimmed, and the voice continued. To carry what we give, you must leave behind what cannot follow. The body, the fear, the time that binds. You will return, but not as you were. Elias did not speak. He only stood and nodded, far away. Near the edge of the gate, every ship and sensor blinked once. The human signal changed again, and this time, it was no longer only human.